Hello, my name is Marvin Heemeyer. Today is, let's see here, April 13th, 2004. I am making this tape. I thought I should make it a year ago. Made part of it. Didn't like it. Really didn't think it'd make any difference if I didn't make it, but a good friend of mine said I should make it. He said I should sit down in front of a videotape machine and do it, but you're just going to have to take my word. This is Marvin Heemeyer, serial number 503-689-471. And I'm living in Granby, Colorado. And this tape is about my life since I come up here to Grand Lake in 1991.
Welcome to an exploration of one of the most extraordinary and infamous events in modern American history, the story of the Killdozer. In this video, we delve into the astonishing tale of Marvin Heemeyer, a seemingly ordinary man who became an unlikely legend. Fueled by frustration and a sense of injustice, Heemeyer transformed a Komatsu D355A bulldozer into a formidable armored vehicle, creating what would become known as the Killdozer. With meticulous planning and unwavering determination, Heemeyer embarked on a rampage through the town of Granby, Colorado, leaving destruction in his wake. Join us as we uncover the motivations behind this extraordinary act of defiance, explore the events that led to its culmination, and examine the enduring legacy of the Killdozer Incident. Strap in for a journey into the depths of human resilience, desperation, and the consequences of unchecked grievances. This is the story of the Killdozer. Marvin Heemeyer's infamous rampage in Granby, Colorado on June 4, 2004 was a complex and tragic event that stemmed from a series of long-standing grievances and perceived injustices. To understand why Heemeyer took such extreme actions, it is necessary to delve into his background, personal experiences, and the events that led to the fateful day when he transformed an armored bulldozer into a killing machine. Marvin Heemeyer was born on October 28, 1951, in South Dakota. He grew up in rural America, where he developed a passion for mechanics and welding. He eventually moved to Colorado and settled in the small town of Granby, where he purchased a muffler repair shop in the late 1990s. Heemeyer was known in the community as a skilled welder and mechanic, and he had a reputation for being diligent and hardworking. However, Heemeyer's relations with the town and its residents began to sour over time, leading to a series of conflicts and disputes that would ultimately culminate in the destructive rampage. One of the key sources of Heemeyer's grievances was a zoning dispute related to a concrete batch plant that was built near his muffler shop. Heemeyer believed that the construction of the plant obstructed access to his property and caused damage to his business, leading to financial losses. Despite his efforts to resolve the issue through legal channels, including filing lawsuits and complaints with local authorities, Heemeyer's complaints were largely ignored or dismissed. He felt that the town officials and local business owners, whom he perceived as being in collusion, were actively working against him and had no regard for his rights or well-being. This sense of powerlessness and betrayal fueled his growing resentment and desire for revenge. In addition to the zoning dispute, there were other personal and financial setbacks that contributed to Heemeyer's feelings of isolation and frustration. He experienced the loss of his beloved muffler shop due to the construction of the concrete plant, which he believed was a deliberate attempt to push him out of business. He also faced challenges in his personal life, including the death of his father and the breakup of a romantic relationship, which further strained his emotional state. As Heemeyer's grievances accumulated and his sense of victimization deepened, he began to harbor feelings of anger, resentment, and paranoia towards the town and its residents. He became increasingly isolated and withdrawn, spending long hours alone in his shop and dwelling on his grievances. He started to express his frustrations through written and verbal communications, in which he articulated his grievances and expressed his desire for justice and retribution. The tipping point for Heemeyer came in the form of a final straw that broke the camel's back. In 2001, the town council approved the construction of a concrete batch plant near his property despite his objections and concerns about the impact on his business. Heemeyer saw this decision as a deliberate act of betrayal and a violation of his rights, further fueling his sense of persecution and injustice. Over the next few years, Heemeyer meticulously planned and prepared for his act of retaliation. He acquired an industrial-grade bulldozer and spent months reinforcing it with steel armor plates, concrete mix, and other materials to make it impervious to bullets and other forms of attack. He also equipped the bulldozer with cameras and monitors to navigate and control it from the inside. On the morning of June 4, 2004, Heemeyer set his plan in motion. He climbed into the armored bulldozer, which he had christened the Killdozer, and drove it through the walls of his former muffler shop, destroying the building in the process. He then proceeded to rampage through the town of Granby, targeting specific buildings and properties that he believed were linked to his grievances.
The scene looked like moments ago. This is tape. This is when we first arrived on scene, and it looked like officers standing on a hill above this earth mover turned tank were firing some pretty heavy arms at him, trying to find a weak spot, trying to find some way to immobilize. This man was now on the east side of Granby in what's called an independent propane company yard. We thought for a time he might actually be taking out some of the propane tanks. He kind of looked like that's what he was thinking about, and then he took off and headed into the downtown area again. Now, if you'll stay with me, photographer David Gregg is going to fast forward some of the videotape, show you just a little bit of some of the crazy things that this man has done over the course of the past hour and a half. And again, we want to emphasize, at last check, when we were last over Granby about 15 minutes ago, he had been stuck inside the back end of the Gamble's appliance store, apparently taken out his own radiator, and the engine had seized up, and SWAT team members were trying to get inside the tank. But a tank it is. It's an earth mover no more. It's actually a tank. Do you guys have some questions that you would like to pass along? Those are the propane tanks that he was kind of milling about for a time.
Absolutely. Luann, can you take us through it chronologically so people get a sense? I know it all started about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Where did he begin? Do you know?
He started on the end of town. We are told unofficially, we want to emphasize that, this man owned a business next to the concrete company, that he had a long-standing beef with the concrete company in Granby, a very long-standing, decades old, it was described to us, and then he went after the concrete company first. He then made his way down Main Street of Granby and actually was taking out buildings as he passed, took out much of the town hall, took out the library, may have gone through the Liberty Bank. It actually looks like he might have punched in one side of a new Liberty Bank in Granby and came out the other. This was, these pictures were taken, again, this is fast forward, but these pictures were taken at about 4 o'clock or so. This would have been about an hour into the rampage. And you can see the armor plate on the side of that. It didn't seem to matter what police officers did with the rifles and such, and they could not pierce it. This was an earth scraper they moved in to try to do some combat, to try to in some way immobilize the scraper. Almost got to where he was turning it over at that point there, but the scraper is just no match for the cat there, the Caterpillar turned tank.
Hey, if you're just joining us, it's now 5 o'clock. This is News 4 at 5. This story's been developing since about 3 o'clock. This is file tape of a man who's got into some bulldozer that he's made into a makeshift armored covered bulldozer, and he's damaged or destroyed half a dozen buildings in Granby, a town of about 1,500, about 50 miles west of Denver in Grand County. So far, we're hearing no one's been injured, but that has not been confirmed.
Luann, let's go back to you, please. Tell me, you talked about this a little bit earlier, but you look at that vehicle, you can't see anybody in there. Did you ever get a look at the person who's inside?
We never did, and I think that because he geared this up, outfitted it to act like a tank, that he had a very tiny kind of point of view that he could see out of. We were skeptical when we first arrived on scene that there was any way for him to fire any weapons out of this, and I think that's exactly the case. What you see on top of there is debris, some venting, a whole lot of cinder blocks. He's actually pushing cinder blocks. These are remnants. This is debris from the buildings he's taken out over the course of the past hour or so prior to when these pictures were taken. Now, if you'll stay with us, he has just headed westbound again. This is tape. He has just again headed westbound into the downtown area. Right there, may have taken out a radiator. He doesn't stop for light poles. He doesn't stop for buildings. He takes out the corner of the copycat store. Again, this is right in downtown Granby. And then the Gamble store next to this became another prime target. He backed up, while the radiator's smoking, while he has any power left, he's going to attack that Gamble's appliance store. Many of the stores, the buildings, the offices that we have seen him take out apparently seem to have some rhyme or reason to him, some kind of history, some kind of ongoing gripe that were part of his problem with the city officials and some of the other business owners in Granby. He's going to turn around here and make one last stand and shove that Caterpillar into the Gamble's appliance store.
During the rampage, Heemeyer methodically targeted the town hall, the concrete batch plant, a former business associate's property, and other buildings that he perceived as symbols of the injustices he had suffered. He used the bulldozer's immense toughness and firepower to plough through walls, buildings, and vehicles, causing extensive damage and chaos in his wake. Despite efforts by law enforcement to stop him, the armoured bulldozer proved to be virtually unstoppable, barreling through obstacles and resisting attempts to disable it. The rampage came to a tragic end when the bulldozer's engine failed, and Heemeyer was unable to continue his assault. Inside the immobilized machine, Heemeyer took his own life, ending the destructive spree that had brought terror and devastation to the town of Granby. The aftermath of the rampage left a trail of destruction, with several buildings demolished and significant property damage inflicted on the town. Following Marvin Heemeyer's rampage in Granby, Colorado, on June 4, 2004, there were various responses and reactions from the individuals and entities he believed were against him or had wronged him. While Heemeyer had expressed grievances and accusations towards specific individuals, businesses, and the town government, the responses to his actions varied among those he targeted. Town officials and local business owners, whom Heemeyer perceived as being in collusion and responsible for his grievances, reacted with shock, disbelief, and confusion at the scale and intensity of his rampage. Many of these individuals had been involved in the zoning dispute and other conflicts with Heemeyer, but they expressed surprise and dismay at the extreme lengths he had gone to seek revenge. Some of the targets of Heemeyer's rampage publicly condemned his actions and expressed sympathy for the victims of the destruction. They emphasized that they had tried to address Heemeyer's concerns through legal channels and dialogue, but had been unable to resolve the conflicts to his satisfaction. They also highlighted the devastation and loss caused by his rampage, both in terms of physical damage and emotional trauma experienced by the community. In contrast, some individuals who had interacted with Heemeyer before the rampage described him as a troubled and isolated individual who had become increasingly embittered and paranoid over time. They noted that he had exhibited signs of distress and anger related to his business struggles and personal setbacks, which had escalated into a desire for retaliation and retribution. Law enforcement officials involved in responding to the rampage also provided insights into Heemeyer's mindset and motivations based on their interactions with him during the incident. They reported that Heemeyer had shown a single-minded determination to carry out his plans, using the armoured bulldozer as a weapon of destruction and resisting all attempts to stop him. They described his actions as calculated and deliberate, with a focus on specific targets linked to his grievances. Psychological assessments of Heemeyer's behaviour and mental state following the rampage highlighted the complex mix of emotions, beliefs, and experiences that had influenced his actions. Experts pointed to signs of chronic stress, isolation, and perceived victimization that had fueled his sense of injustice and desire for revenge. They noted that Heemeyer's escalating grievances and alienation from the community had contributed to a volatile and ultimately tragic outcome. In the aftermath of the rampage, the community of Granby came together to heal and rebuild in the wake of the devastation caused by Heemeyer's actions. Residents and local businesses rallied to support one another, repair the damage, and move forward from the trauma of the incident. The town also engaged in dialogue and reflection on the lessons learned from the tragedy, including the importance of conflict resolution, mental health awareness, and community solidarity. Overall, the responses to Marvin Heemeyer's rampage reflected a mix of shock, sorrow, and introspection among those he believed were against him. While some individuals expressed sympathy for his struggles and acknowledged the challenges he faced, others condemned his violent actions and emphasized the need for healing and understanding in the aftermath of the tragedy. The complex web of emotions, conflicts, and perceptions surrounding the incident underscored the deep impact of Heemeyer's actions on the community and the enduring questions they raised about justice, forgiveness, and reconciliation. Thanks for watching. To support us, please like and subscribe.